What happens when a generation decides that stability isn't worth the sacrifice anymore? For decades, Japan's salaryman life promised security in exchange for loyalty, long hours, and total commitment to the company. It shaped identity, family life, and even national growth. But today, Gen Z is quietly pushing back. They aren't just quitting jobs, they're redefining what work should mean in modern Japan. Because if the country that perfected lifetime employment is renegotiating its work culture, the ripple effects won't stay in Japan. They could signal where global work culture is heading next. For much of the post-war period, Japan operated under a powerful system often described as membership-based employment. Under this system, companies did not just hire workers for specific tasks. They hired people as long-term members. In return for loyalty and flexibility, workers received stability and steady pay increases over time. But that stability came with a price. Job duties were not clearly limited. Overtime was common. Relocation orders, called tenkan, could move workers across the country. Social life often revolved around the company. This model became the cultural ideal of adulthood, especially for men. It worked during Japan's high-growth years. Companies expanded. Wages rose. The bargain felt fair. But what happens when growth slows and sacrifice stays the same? In the 1990s, Japan entered a long period of slow growth. Hiring slowed. The employment ice age from roughly 1993 to 2004 made it harder for young people to find stable jobs. Many millennials accepted unstable work because there were few options. But Gen Z entered a different Japan. Today, Japan faces population decline. As of October 1st, 2024, only about 59.6% of the population is working age, while 29.3% is 65 or older. That creates labor shortages, and labor shortages change power. For the first time in decades, young workers have leverage. At the same time, union membership has fallen to 16.1%. The lowest level recorded. In smaller companies, unionization is almost non-existent. When workers lose their collective voice, they rely on something else: exit. Now here's where things get interesting. A major 2024 survey found that 44.5% of regular employees describe themselves as quiet quitters. Among workers in their 20s, that number rises to 46.7%. Quiet quitting does not mean leaving a job. It means doing exactly what is required. No more. No unpaid extra effort. No late nights unless necessary. No emotional overinvestment. Even more telling, 70.4% of those quiet quitters say they plan to continue. This is not temporary frustration. It is a boundary. For decades, promotion was the goal. Now some young workers do not even want it. Why? Because they have seen the cost. Japan has long struggled with overwork. In fiscal year 2024, 241 cases of cerebrovascular and cardiovascular disease were officially recognized as work-related. 67 of those were deaths. There were also 1,055 cases of work-related mental disorders recognized, including 88 suicides. Nearly 70% of compensated overwork cases involved overtime exceeding 80 hours per month. That number, 80 hours, has become a warning line. Young workers have grown up aware of these risks. The old contract promised security, but when security feels uncertain and health risks remain real, the bargain changes. For decades, leaving a company early could damage a resume. That stigma is weakening. A recent cohort of university graduates showed that 33.8% left their first job within 3 years. In certain service sectors, turnover is even higher. Meanwhile, 79.5% of companies reported hiring or planning to hire mid-career workers, up significantly from a decade ago. This means something important. The system itself is adapting. When companies hire mid-career workers more often, job switching becomes normal. And when job switching becomes normal, loyalty becomes optional. There are now approximately 2.09 million people working primarily as freelancers in Japan, about 3.1% of the workforce, plus nearly 500,000 doing freelance work as a side job. This group is large enough to influence culture. In 2024, new legal protections for freelancers were introduced, requiring clearer contracts and safeguards against harassment. This signals recognition that work outside traditional employment is not temporary. It is structural. But freelancing shifts risk from company to individual. Gen Z appears willing to accept that risk in exchange for autonomy. The traditional salaryman model relied on long hours and relocation, but that structure clashes with modern expectations of gender equality and caregiving. Only about half of female workers are regular employees, compared to around 80% of men. Work design matters. If career progression depends on unlimited availability, fewer people can participate equally. Gen Z is more likely to question systems that assume one worker at home supporting another. The rejection of salaryman life is also a rejection of outdated social assumptions. Entry-level wages have risen over time. For example, university graduates' starting monthly earnings have increased between 2006 and 2024. So the issue is not simply pay, it is a perceived return on sacrifice. If long hours, transfers, and stress no longer guarantee upward mobility, young workers adjust their effort. The question becomes simple: is the ladder worth climbing? For many in Gen Z, the answer is only if it feels fair. This is not laziness, it is renegotiation. The older contract demanded total flexibility and promised rising security. When voice through unions declines, exit becomes negotiation. When overwork remains visible, boundaries become survival. When demographic decline creates labor shortages, leverage shifts. Japan's shrinking population ensures that young workers matter more than ever. Companies can respond in two ways. They can demand old loyalty and risk losing talent, or they can redesign work around bounded roles, flexibility, and transparent rewards. The salaryman once symbolized national strength. Abruptly, the question is no longer whether Gen Z is rejecting salaryman life. The real question is whether salaryman life can survive Gen Z.